I am Curran Bhatia speaking with Vito Mielnicki. You've seen him in the boxing ring, only 23 years old, but he's had major success and he has a big test coming up on Pro Box. This is going down in Atlantic City on our April 11th. We'll get into all of it, but first of all, Vito, how are you doing, my friend?
Doing great. Just finishing up a good day of training camp with Ronnie Shields down in Houston. Feeling good. A few weeks out now. Just, winding down, keeping the tools sharp, and excited for April 11th.
Absolutely. And you mentioned Ronnie Shields, and we know Ronnie has been linked to many fighters, world champions. What has it been like? I believe this is the eighth fight of your partnership with Ronnie Shields. So what is it like training with Ronnie Shields?
Yeah, I mean, it's just, it's consistent. You know what you're going to get out of Ronnie every day. That's why he's at the top and been at the top for so long. His consistent work that he puts in and day out, it shows come fight night, and he instills that in his fighters. And just being around the type of fighters that I'm with down here, it's a blessing. And just learning from Ronnie, all the guys in the gym, we feed off each other's energy, and just putting in the work daily. So the last 8 fights have been great. I've just been being a sponge out here, just absorbing all the knowledge and taking it all in. And fight by fight, Ronnie and I have definitely, continued to grow.
And last time out, you were out in Saudi Arabia. This time, it's going to be a homecoming. You're coming back to your home state of New Jersey, Saturday, April 11th. This is at Boardwalk Hall on Pro Box. And like I said, I want to talk about your upcoming fight, but let's just talk about the road to get here. Recently, you made a move. You were previously with PBC, with Top Rank. You've worked with others, and you decided to link up with Samson Lewkowicz. And if anyone doesn't know Samson Lewkowicz, he worked with Sergio Martinez, David Benavidez. I believe he was also partially responsible, if not fully responsible, for bringing Pacquiao to America as well. So how did it all come together in terms of your partnership with Samson Lewkowicz?
Yeah, Samson and I've known Samson for years now. Obviously, my dad was in the fight game early on when I was a kid, on the promotional side of things. But so I would always see Samson at the fights. But Samson and I feel like even at all the fights at the PBC cards, like we were always so close with them. And then it was like a full circle moment, when the fell out with Top Rank, obviously. And then everybody was talking about Zuffa, Vito to Zuffa. And then Samson and I, we came together and ultimately, broke a deal that made sense for me at this point in my career. Gave me flexibility, allowed me to, have a voice in my career, allowed me to, take charge of my career and like ultimately, call the shots as to what I want to do. And obviously my father, my team to have more of a say in everything. So it's been a blessing for sure to, be partnered with Samson. And he's one of the greats. I know a lot of people that, aren't deep in boxing might not know Samson because he's more of like on the outside. Like he tries to stay out of the limelight. His name's not as big as like all these big companies, but anybody who does know knows that he's got these diamonds in the rough that come out of nowhere and shock the world every time that they go up there. So it's definitely great. I'm excited to get this first one in Atlantic City and put on a great performance.
He's got the diamonds in the rough. I think he's also got, if you see him at a fight, he's got the gold chain, maybe diamonds around him. He's hard to miss. He looks like he's always having a great time. And you mentioned, we spoke about some of the great fighters that have been linked with Samson Lewkowicz and under his tutelage there. So that's going to be a great partnership, I'm sure, going forward. You mentioned Vito to Zuffa, and that was the news. We saw that in many places that you were one of the names that was linked to Zuffa Boxing. I also read, though, that you hadn't received a written offer from Zuffa. So did you ever receive anything written from Zuffa?
No, but that it was true. Like it was, something in the works that could have happened. And I do think that Zuffa is, they're putting on good fights. They're doing their thing over there. And I think anything that Dana White touches does turn to gold. So it should be interesting to see how that unfolds. But yeah, like you said, nothing was ever finalized. Nothing was ever, obviously Dana, like I said, Dana White is a mastermind in the fight game. Obviously you've seen what he's done with UFC. I've spoke to Dana White on the phone, so like it got as far as that. And I'm excited to see what they do for sure. And it's exciting to see like the different mindset of a guy coming from like the UFC, coming into boxing, the fights that they're putting on. I'm a boxing fan, so like any fights that I watch, I enjoy. So it's cool to see.
Absolutely. We've seen what the team has done with building UFC into the platform, and now a few fights into Zuffa Boxing. So conversations were had there with you and Dana White about you joining Zuffa. But as you said, no paperwork. It didn't get to that stage.
Yeah.
But so how, in your mind, as you were going through that at that time, how close was it? Was it something where it was like 1 yard line, you're just waiting for the paperwork? And then what ultimately led you to say, okay, I'm going to pause on Zuffa and then join Samson?
Yeah. Obviously, I mean, Dana White is like, he followed me on Instagram and I was like, oh, this is cool. I was like, this Dana White, like, I'm a big UFC fan as well. So speaking on the phone with him, obviously it was cool, but it was more just about like at this point in my career, it had nothing to do with what they had to offer and what they what they didn't offer. It was more at the point, like my father and I, my team, we felt as though that it was just the right move at this moment. At this point in my career, as to we want to be able to, steer the ship a little bit here at this point in where I'm at. So it had nothing to do with what they had and didn't have. It was more just about what we wanted to do for me at this very moment.
Absolutely. That makes a lot of sense. And I think you only at, 23 years old and a big future ahead, it makes sense that you took a moment there to think about all your options and think about what's next in your career. You've already worked with some really big names in the sport. So I'm sure you're keeping all options open
Sure.
going forward. Before we talk about your big fight coming up, last thing on Dana and Zuffa, I'm curious about a fighter's perspective because Zuffa is coming in, disrupting the sport and trying a different model here. They have their own belt with the Zuffa belt. There's going to be consistent events, storytelling. These are things that the sport has wanted for such a long time. So they're definitely trying things. I'm curious when you started to get an idea of the framework that Zuffa would be presenting. I'm guessing it was different than frameworks that you'd seen in the past with PBC and Top Rank. How was it different? Was fighter pay different? Was the amount of times you'd be fighting different? What did you notice there? There was some differences between Zuffa and what you had before that.
Yeah, it had nothing to do with fighter pay. I feel as though they're taking care of their guys over there. They're putting everything out there for them to see. And I know that's been speculation. A lot of people with the Muhammad Ali Act were talking about that. But no, they laid everything out for me. So it had nothing to do with that. Obviously, the layout of the fight nights, the uniforms, the no sponsorships, that kind of stuff was definitely different. For me, I get a lot of sponsorships for my fights and endorsements. So I also have to, take that into play as well. But I do feel like they will eventually, like the UFC does, they have big brand sponsorships on these guys' uniforms. And I think eventually that's what it'll get to. But, it was definitely a different outline in terms of how things looked, the layout of fight nights, just the fight weeks, everybody having nutritionists, everybody having like being under the same umbrella, being even as, in boxing, you see these B-side opponents coming in maybe less prepared because they have less resources at their but Zuffa doesn't have that. They offer that to all their fighters. So that's one thing that I would say was cool for sure to see.
It's a very interesting time in boxing. We spoke about Top Rank now linking up with DAZN. A lot of big changes, a lot of different things happening in the sport, and Zuffa Boxing making its presence known even in the first few shows, and obviously bigger shows to come ahead. So let's talk about your upcoming fight here, Saturday, April 11th. This is going down on ProBox in Atlantic City. So we mentioned a moment ago, your last fight was in Saudi Arabia, a long way from home. So what does it mean now for you to be fighting back in your home of New Jersey?
Yeah, it's going to be super exciting. I fought at the Prudential Center a bunch, but this will be my first time fighting in Atlantic City. So it should be exciting. Should be a different, fight night feel, a different vibe, people coming out for the weekend rather than just for the night. So I'm excited for that. But to come back home, it's always great having all my family, my friends, and all my, my supporters back home all come down to South Jersey and show love, show support. It's going to be exciting. And I'm excited to put on a a dominant performance, an exciting fight for them, and give them their money's worth coming down for the weekend to support me. It means the world to me, and I just want to keep putting on great fights for them.
You're speaking of great fights. Your last fight in Saudi Arabia ended in a spectacular knockout in the 9th round. So with this fight coming up on Saturday, April 11th, you're facing an undefeated opponent in Omar Huerta. What are your predictions for this fight? How do you see it playing out?
Yeah, Omar Huerta, he's 15-0, 13 knockouts. From what I've seen of him, he's tall, southpaw, good body puncher. Mexican fighter, so we all know what they bring. Should be an exciting fight, action-packed fight. But we're preparing to go 10 rounds. We're preparing to go any point in the ring, any side, any corner, and inside, outside. So it's going to be exciting. And but I'm expecting a dominant performance for myself. I expect nothing less of that every time I step in the ring. So that's what we're training for day in and day out.
You're riding high off of the momentum of your last fight, as we mentioned. Looking at the middleweight division, in a way, there's a lot of openings and opportunities there in the middleweight division right now. What do you make of the division overall?
Yeah, I mean, I think the division's, coming up. I think we have a lot of younger guys that are going to start to take over the division, including me, including myself. So I think it's calling for a name. It's calling for like I think an American prospect to come in and really take over. And I think this fight, I'm fighting for a few of those regional sanctioning belts that'll rank me across the board. So I obviously handle business April 11th, and then God willing, hopefully we get a phone call from one of these champions, or I know that there's going to be some vacated titles, hopefully in the WBO. Those top guys will fight, and then maybe we can receive a phone call. I would want nothing less of that. God willing, that's how it plays out. But obviously, we know boxing. We know anything could happen, good or bad. But right now, we got to focus on April 11th, take it one at a time, and just keep pushing forward day in and day out.
And the next step on that journey is Saturday, April 11th. Before I let you go, I just wanted to ask you about a big picture, overarching question, a little bit about your perspective. I know that when you were just 8 years old, you were at Paul Williams versus Arislandi Lara, and this was at Boardwalk Hall in Atlantic City, and that's where you're going to be fighting. I was actually there live for that event as well. This is where you'll be fighting on Saturday, April 11th in Atlantic City. So you were essentially a kid with a dream. You are now turning your dream into a reality as a 23-year-old professional, doing great things in the sport. So I'm just curious if you have some words of wisdom for anyone who may be listening to this on their own journey, trying to make their own name, or maybe even some words to that 8-year-old kid. What would you say about going for your dream and trying to achieve these great things?
Yeah, I mean, that kid at 8 years old that was walking around that boardwalk with a Nathan's hot dog, not knowing what to expect. I was just getting started in this sport. But I would just tell him myself, just keep going. All those sacrifices that you make along the way, the missing the birthdays, missing the family events, missing school events, missing all this stuff, it'll all pay off. It'll all be worth it. Keep your head on straight, block out the noise, stay locked in, and stay in the gym. Stay dedicated to your craft. And it's going to be tough, don't get me wrong, but you got to just keep pushing forward. You're going to have your highs, your lows, your ups, your downs, happy, sad, peaks and valleys, but it just makes the journey a whole lot prettier, especially when you get to the top looking down. So it's a blessing to be where I'm at. God is great, and he continues to bless me with all great opportunities. I'm going to just continue to put in the work, control the controllable, and just keep going up.
It's well said, and congratulations on everything that you have achieved up to this point, and wishing you the best of success moving forward, the next step on your journey. Saturday, April 11th, it's going down in Atlantic City, and this will be on ProBox. Vito Mielnicki, thank you so much for the time. Best of luck, and hope to chat with you soon, my friend.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.